I believe that the only way to keep our art form alive and relevant is to enrich the canon with some pieces that will become the classics of tomorrow. An art form which does not have a healthy renewal is like a population with no children. It will just become old and ultimately perish. So we need to identify and promote the masterworks of today, and especially to find the rare pieces, I would say, crème de la crème, which will stand the test of time and belong to the repertoire of the future. I personally love to be in contact and collaborate with composers of our time who are indeed alive on Earth today and reflect on the same world as mine. Not only for the exciting opportunity to exchange ideas about their music, which obviously I cannot do with Bach, Beethoven, Brahms or Debussy, but also for the opportunity to understand better and search together what is the essence of our epoch. Great composers help us to decipher the world we are in, to understand who we are, where we are, and where we are heading, especially and ironically if their masterworks become eternal and timeless. So here at the New World Symphony, we will continue with passion our quest of finding and performing modern and relevant masterworks, and hope that they inspire us and future generations.
I find orchestra music and classical music compelling because of the emotion. This is going to sound funny. It's the immensity of the sound. I think from my undergraduate days of sitting inside an orchestra and playing, being inside the sound was such an amazing, magical thing. It made such a deep impression on my soul that when it came time to actually write orchestra music, I started figuring out how can I replicate that power, the power of the sound.
Yes, oh my God. Oh my God, mi, do, re. That's the cello. Look.
Oh my gosh.
Mi, do, re. Look. That's really the sketches.
Yeah, it really is. Maybe it was living in Tennessee and there was just not a lot of classical music around. But my mom bought a flute. And I think she wanted to learn to play, but she never learned to play it. It was sitting in the attic, and I found it one day, and I thought, this is kind of cool. I'd always been attracted to music. I remember thinking at the age of 6 or 7 that music has power. Maybe it was because I was affected by music I was hearing on the radio. This is the only thing I can figure out. Or in movies, maybe it was movies. Because my freshman year in high school, the first Star Wars movie came out, I think that had a profound impact. My parents bought me the first album for the first one, and my brother got the exact same album because we were both hogging it to such a point that they had to buy 2 of these. And I think hearing the John Williams score for the first Star Wars movie may have really kind of set a fire under me. It was so obvious that there was some sort of power that I was not aware of with the symphonic world.
That's fascinating. That's all these kind of first initial ideas that are coming there.
Look at this. I'm trying 2 different titles.
Cathedral Blue.
And Blue Cathedral.
Oh, amazing. This is maybe where you wrote for the first time Blue Cathedral?
Yeah, it is. It's the very first time. My brother and I, Andy, it's interesting, we were always doing creative stuff, playing outside and writing short stories, and my brother drew a lot.
And he was also a musician.
He was. He played the clarinet in band. I think he got into band because I was enjoying it so much. So he played electric guitar not so well because I think he kind of wanted to be a rock and roller. Andy and I were always really close, so only a year and a half between us. We were so much alike. It's just every day we spent every day with each other, and it was kind of it was a cool thing.
So later on you went to Curtis and Penn.
Yeah, it was kind of incredible. I got to Curtis and the musicians were so extraordinary. I was like, wow, what is this? It was just music all the time, everywhere. I loved the French school, Ravel and Debussy. And some of that was from playing those pieces in the orchestra. I remember doing Ravel's Daphnis and Chloe and thinking, this is incredible, being inside the sound. I think also the American school, Samuel Barber, Aaron Copland. Aaron Copland was some of the first classical music I got to know. But I love that American school and the French. It's kind of it's a good combination, isn't it?
I definitely approve this combination.
There was something really strange that happened the night before Andy called me. I had this dream. It was a very vivid dream that Andy was in a Volkswagen van that was kind of smashed on top. And I remember in the dream thinking, I have to tell my parents that Andy has died. And it was a very vivid dream. And it was one of those dreams you wake up, and even now I can run it back in my head. And I thought, oh, that was a weird dream. And then Andy called, and he was in the hospital because he had basically a headache and slightly blurry vision. It was the only symptoms he had. And so they told him, you're really sick. In fact, you're dying. And I know Andy didn't know how to process it, but I remember him calling and saying, I think I'm dying. And so I drove from Philadelphia down to Baltimore at high speed. When I talked to the doctor said, well, and he may go in the next 24 hours or he may go in about 6 or 7 weeks. I called both of my parents. My dad lived in Portland, Oregon. My mom lived in Virginia Beach. And I said, you got to get here as fast as you can. I was also very aware he could be gone by the time they got there. So they got there pretty fast, but boy, having to tell my parents. And then I remembered that dream. And I was freaked out. And it turned out it was 7 weeks from us finding out and his passing away. We knew it was going to be an exit. We knew that Andy wasn't doing well. You could kind of tell, but his sense of humor was completely intact. And because he was holding it together so well, we all felt like we needed to hold it together. But as my dad pointed out, a lot of people don't get to say goodbye like this. So we basically ate Krispy Kreme donuts and junk food and watched movies and told jokes for 7 weeks. But it was intense. It was really kind of removed your brain and your body from the world. Somehow we all made it through, but with a lot of humor. This was the thing. There was a lot of, I remember asking Andy one morning, I said, you want some coffee? And he said, no, I gave it up. I heard it wasn't good for you. So he kept a sense of humor, but I think his keeping his sense of humor and his kind of being calm kind of kept all of us in a better place than we probably would have been. One really amazing memory, him and I sitting out on the beach in Virginia Beach, and we had lounge chairs out there, and we were just watching the ocean, and I said, Andy, I'm going to write a piece for you someday. And he said, I'd like that a lot. A very simple memory, but man, a great one. But the grief was intense. And I found that writing music felt like I was hanging on to life. That's what it really, I came back home and I started writing. I had commissions. I was very lucky. People had asked me to write works. The very first piece I wrote happened to be choral work called Southern Grace. I thought this is probably a good place for me to start the process of trying to deal. But I have to admit, in the first year after his death, trying to function, teaching and all, that I was trying to figure out, is life going to be about Andy's death? Is it going to be about death in general, or is it going to be about living?
So let's speak about the commission. You had a commission for Curtis' 75th anniversary.
Yeah. I was thinking 75th anniversary should be a fanfare, should be celebratory. And I thought about Andy's influence on other people. And I thought, I'm watching these students as I'm teaching, and I'm thinking, I need to write a piece that has a lot of solos, that recognizes that a bunch of individuals make up a school, make up an orchestra, and that's what makes an institution. And I like to look up at the sky, so that was making me think of the sky. And Andy lived, this is just an ironic, I only figured this out later on, he lived on Cathedral Street in Baltimore. I didn't realize it completely at the time, but I was thinking about how Curtis is a little bit like a cathedral in a way, cathedral of music, you know? You go there, you study, you contemplate, you grow. And I was thinking about looking up at the sky and talking to Andy, and I thought, glass cathedral in the sky. It literally was something just popped into my head. And I thought, what if you were floating in? What if you were flying up towards the ceiling? And that kind of started the journey of progression. The flute solo starts the piece out because I was born first. The clarinet comes in after that because Andy came after. And so I basically thought, I want something that builds, just builds. That's how I built the piece. I thought slow, voices accumulating, accelerating, going up. And I imagined, when I was part of the way through the writing, I thought, what if the ceiling just disappeared and you flew up into the stars? By the time you get to the brass fanfare, which is like 2/3 of the way through, I think I had really decided that my life had to be about living. It couldn't be about thinking about death all the time. It really was kind of a breakthrough moment for me. This is what music has to be about. It's what my life has to be about. It was literally that brass fanfare was as if I had broken through the grief. It didn't go away, but I decided life had to keep moving on. There are a lot of performances, if I'm at it, where people will come up to me. A lot of times they can't speak. They've got tears in their eyes, and they just take my hand. And I'm like, it's okay. I totally understand. The musicians also feel like it's part of their voyage. And honestly, I don't even feel like it's my piece anymore. It really belongs to the world. I think there are enough of us have shared the experience of either listening to it or playing it that it really does belong to everyone.
Well, that's wonderful stuff. So because you really see the different stages.
Yeah.
You see the project
kind of morphing.
Even just that is morphing from that to that to that
That's it.
I have to thank you because not only I love this piece, but I think you really offer to the world a piece that is extremely alive. That has, for a piece that speaks about death and about mourning, it's actually a piece full of hope.
Thank you. That's what I was shooting for. But boy, I'm so glad to know that it hit the mark.
The sky is green and the grass is blue.
You know, it's interesting the way our lives intersect. It's kind of what New World is. All these incredible musicians are going to have this relationship with these people who sit alongside them in an ultimate learning experience, working through music that's moving and difficult and challenging. And this is going to mean a lot to them. These people are going to mean a lot to them.
Love it if you could read the program note.
Yeah.
And the grass is blue.
I'm ready? Okay. In tribute to my brother, I feature solos for the clarinet, the instrument he played, and the flute, the instrument I played. Because I'm the older sibling, it is the flute that appears first in this dialogue. At the end of the work, the two instruments continue the dialogue, but it is the flute that drops out and the clarinet that continues on in the upward progressing journey. This is a story that commemorates living and passing through places of knowledge and of sharing and of that song called life.